Okay, what I wanted to go over is some best practices and how you should be starting your projects in Fusion 360. I see a lot of students have a tendency to be kind of confused and they just want to go in here and start creating with no structure or anything, and then that's a problem because the way Fusion works is it records a timeline, okay, and that's very important because you can always go back and forth in your timeline to edit things. If you don't set your structure up right, it could be a nightmare because then all your timeline is recorded together. So we want to start properly. So let me kind of go through there and show you how this is done. Okay, so when you first come in here, what you want to do is come over here and create a new project. Okay, so we're going to create a project and then we're going to name this project. We're going to give this the name for our class. Okay, so this is going to be called hard surface class. If I can spell, not surface class. Okay, so that's a folder that you can use for this class, and any of the projects that we do in this class will be in that project, in that folder. So we just double click on that and that'll open us into the folder. Okay, so that's to keep everything organized for this class. Okay, and then we're going to create a new folder, and this folder is for this project, and this is going to be the shipping case project. So we'll just say shipping case, and then we'll go inside of here. So as we're modeling things in the shipping case and such, we're saving it in here. We're staying organized. Now, by default, you're on a new project up here when you first come in. You want to create a new project, you just hit this plus button over here, and that creates a new project. You'll see it's untitled, and right here this says untitled, and so we want to name that. So all we got to do is save, and you'll see it defaults to where I'm at, hard surface class, shipping case, and then I want to go in here and we're just going to call this shipping case. Okay, and then you'll see it says shipping case version 01 up here. Okay, so as we save new versions, then you'll have multiple versions saved in here. So you should save as you go along in case that way if it crashes or it's, something's corrupt about it, you have multiple versions of this. Now, one of the things that students don't realize is one of the first things you should be doing is setting up if you go up here and put right click right up here, you'll see it says new component. Now you can add a new component here. That's also this button right here, add a new component. You can think of components as like folders to store your information in, or maybe like layers in Photoshop. So this is one of the things where a lot of students screw up is right here, is they create everything in our base component right here, and we don't want to do that. We want to have a component for everything that we're going to do. So that's one of the first things you need to do is to figure out, okay, well, I need to take whatever I'm building and I need to bring it in and decide how I want to organize its structure. Now, one of the things that I do to keep organized is I use PureRef. Okay, PureRef is a utility in which that I can drag and drop things on so that while I'm modeling, I have them floating out in my environment. Okay. So let's see, what I'm going to do here is, where did I put it? I have a shipping case. Okay, so this is a shipping case that I'm going to be the basis of what I'm doing. And so I've opened up a view of the case, and all I got to do is drag and drop that onto my board, and then I can set that down. And then I can have this will float on top of my software. Okay. Now, another thing I'm going to do here is I've searched because I need to know some measurements on this. And so you'll see down here that it's got the set of measurements for me when I'm making this so I can make it accurate to scale. I have a little utility installed on my Chrome. Okay, I'm going to click on it up here. It's called FireShot, and it allows me to do snapshots. So I'm going to click this one, Capture Selection, and then I'm just going to capture this area right here, which has my main measurements on it. then it's going to capture that. It'll come in here. And you can save this, but what I can do right here is just go copy to clipboard. And then I just come in here and I just paste. And it'll copy and put it on my PureRef board. Okay. So I can have this to look at it when I'm modeling, plus here's my measurements and such. Okay, now I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to hit Control 0, and that's going to make my canvas size match to that. Not 0, Control O. And then I want my PureRef to go ahead and size for that, which is Control Shift R, so now, and of course I can zoom in on this, whatever I want to do. Okay, so I don't need this anymore, and so what's nice is this will float over the top, so while I'm modeling I can have this information. Now, because I don't have a plan view of this, the idea that I'm going to insert some type of an image to create from, I don't have one, because you can't create from this because this is at a 3/4 view. So I really don't have that ability in here, so I don't really need to worry about that. Okay, but what I can do here is decide that, okay, I need to look at this and evaluate this and decide how I'm going to divide this up. Okay, so I'm going to create a component for every piece here that's a component. I'm going to group them. So I'm just going to click a new component. Okay, this will come up. Now, by default, it'll go activate, which means that when I create this, it's going to make it the hot component, and I don't want that, so I want to uncheck that. By default, it's going to put this component underneath my shipping component, and that's what I want right now. And so I'm going to call this the case base. Okay, so this is going to be my base. So this is where I'm going to, the layer that I'm going to model this with. Okay, so I'm going to create another one. And this one's going to be for the top. Okay, so this will be the case top. And then I'm going to create another one, which is going to be the latches. Okay, so I'm going to say latches on this. And then I'm going to want one for the handles. So handles. And then I'm going to make one for the wheels. Okay, so now I've got a component. This is what they call a component. You can think of it as a layer, so to speak, like in Photoshop, but it's a component for each of the things I'm going to create. Now, you see how this has a little dot out to the side of it? You see this dot out here has got a black dot in it. That means it's active. So when I come here and I click this black dot, then this is the timeline that's active. I go to this one's active. Okay, so when I'm wanting to build the case top, I need to make this active, and then I will model with that. Okay, so this puts all of my information here. Okay, now default, when you make these, you have origins, but as I create new things, they'll go inside of here too. Okay, so for right now, just to kind of show you how this works, is we're going to go create on our base here. Okay, and I'm going to create from a sketch, and I'm going to create on the bottom, and then I'm going to create a rectangle. And I'll just create something like that. And then I can finish that sketch. And you'll see now it put me a sketch on inside of this. Okay, so it's housing this sketch inside of this base component. So now I can do something like do a press pull. And I can come and pull this up. And then I can give it specific measurements and such over here. Okay, I can make it two-sided, one-sided, a lot of options in here. And then I can leave this on new body. Okay, now my options are join, cut, intersect. That's if I'm doing some kind of Boolean operation that I'm putting things in here, or new body or new component. So if I forgot to create a component for this, instead of saying new body, I can say new component and it'll create a component. But in my case here, I want it to go inside of here, so this is going to be my new body. So I'm just going to click OK, and now you'll see I've got bodies in here. And there it is. And I'm going to name this, and this is going to be my base. And let's turn on our wireframe. Okay. So now you'll see down here on my timeline, this is on my timeline. Okay. But if I go up here to top and I make top active, you'll see there's nothing on my timeline. So this is collecting your timelines specific to your object, okay, or to your component. So I could come in here and say, okay, I want to do a fillet on this, which is fine. And then I could come in and say, okay, I want to do a chamfer on this. And then maybe I want to create a hole on this. And let's say I want to put it there. And let's say I want it to go all the way through it. And I click OK. And then there's a hole in there. Okay. So all of this modeling that I've done on this piece is on this component, so its timeline is just specific to this. So later when I close this, okay, I can go to my base top and I click to make it the active layer. Okay, I can turn this one off so I don't see it. And now I can create something, and you'll see it doesn't have a timeline on this. Okay, so let's say I go to this one and I create a cylinder, create it on the bottom. And we go here, and then we'll do kind of the same thing. We'll just fillet it, and then we'll do a little chamfer. Okay, and then I can say, oh, I want to create a hole in it. And I want to create it on that. And I want to go from the top because I want to snap it to the center. It'll snap to the center. Okay. And maybe in this situation, I only want it to go down a certain distance. I don't want it to go all the way through, so I can click OK. And then maybe say, okay, that's kind of a hard edge, and so I want to fillet that edge. And I give it a little fillet like so. Now, another thing that you'll notice sometimes is you'll see some faceting in here. And what you can do is, if you'll right-click on that layer, you can go down here to Display Detail Control. And by default, it's doing kind of a low poly version of it. So I can say, okay, I want to fix that. And maybe I want to fix it to a medium. You can see low, if you really look at this, it's kind of faceted. I can say medium, and I can say high. Now, this doesn't change the nature of what the actual object is. It's just changing the nature of how it's being displayed. If you have a pretty good computer, you can do the high. Usually medium is fine. And that, like I said, this is not really changing the resolution of the object itself. It's just changing the resolution of the display. Okay. Now you'll see all of this is on its timeline. Okay. So if I close that and I go to latches and click the timeline, you'll see it doesn't show. And there's the timeline for this one. And then there's the timeline for that one. Okay, I can hide them. Now, if I go up here to my top and I click this one, it shows all timelines. So this one's the base that shows everything that's happened, but these are individual. Now, this can get kind of confusing down here. So what you can do is color code these. If you do that, you go down the bottom right-hand corner. There's a little star down here, a little gear, and you'll click on it and click Component Color Swatch. And now what it does is it color codes each one of these like it's on layer. So when I'm on the master layer, I can say, oh, okay, the case is this kind of fuchsia color like here. So this area right here is what I'm doing to modify anything that was on this piece. Okay. So that can kind of help you. So then I would go back to here, and you'll see this is color-coded. So I've worked for a while now. Okay, now would be a good time to save this. So I'm going to hit save, and it's going to update that. Okay, now this is on the cloud, so it's saving on a cloud. We can save it locally too if we want to do that. Okay, so let's modify this some. I'm going to go right here and let's chamfer this. Okay, so now I can go. I'm going to go up to here and I'm going to say save as. Okay, and now I'm going to save this. I'm going to do an _02. And I'm going to save this. And now it's going to save it as a new piece. So periodically you should save it with a new name. That way we can always go back if there's a problem, something's corrupted. We've got multiple versions of this. Okay, so that is kind of how you need to start out, by organizing first, making your layers, and then be sure that you are actually building things on layers. Now, people ask me all the time, well, if I create this on its own layer in this body, and then I decide I want this down here in this body, can I do that? Can I drag it down here? Yes, you can drag it down there, but you cannot move the timeline. So if you bring it down here, it's basically, if I do that, you don't have the timeline anymore. That's why you need to organize these first when you first start, so that you can isolate your timelines, because these timelines will get massively long. I mean, they'll get 20 inches long, and I see students that build everything here, and you can already see this is just this long, and I've just barely started doing anything. This can become daunting with this huge timeline when you need to go back and edit things. And guess what? You're going to need to edit everything, because anytime you do something, you're doing it with a client or a creative director, and they're going to want changes. So you're building your way to make easy changes. So we want to build in components, and you should start the component first by, it's basically like you're in Photoshop making your layers first, that when I create the base, it's going to be on this layer. When I create the top, it's going to be on this layer. When I create the latches and so forth. Okay. Like I said, there is no benefit, and I see people doing this all the time. There's no benefit for coming in here and inserting this image in here, because the only reason you want to insert an image is if you got it directly from the side where you could trace from it. Okay. So if you had something like this, where you could, you got a measurement that you could go right up next to it. Let's see if I got another one in here. Like here's one for latches. Okay, to create the latch. Then this is nice. If you can find a side drawing, there's like, let's see. I think I had one. So like here's a shipping case with the measurements on it. So something like this, you could come in here and insert it as a canvas, because then you can measure up to this. Okay. So, but most likely, you can look, see if you can find this, do a research on this. You got to at least do enough research on it. You should try to find whatever case you're having and find it from different angles, and then bring those different angles and versions of this. Now, when we know something like a specification for this, so we know, okay, here's the exterior dimensions for this piece. So it's in centimeters or inches. I prefer to work in inches, but that's up to you. You can work in centimeters too. We want to start out by building a base that's correct measurements on this. So for right now, I'm just going to hide this base, and we'll turn this sketch on. Okay, so I need to make this a specific size. So if I go in here to edit my sketch, then I can actually put in measurements on these. So you can go to create sketch dimension here, and I click on this one and bring it up, and I can make that a certain dimension. Okay, now you'll see it's in millimeters, which is fine. I can go over here and I can say, okay, this is 83.2. So 83.2. And then let's see, this other one was 53. So we're going to go here, and this one's 53. So you can come in here and size these. Now let's go ahead and move this. Okay, so I have to grab all the edges, and then I can move this pretty much centered. And then I can finish the sketch. Now, let's swivel back around. And I turn my base back on, and you'll see that it updated that object to be that size. Now really, I don't really want this base, so I'm just going to delete that. Okay, now it's telling you when you delete something that if there's anything else that's utilizing this, like all this other stuff, you could lose it. Sometimes you don't want to do that, so you just want to remove it, which tells it to go away but keep all the parameters. Okay, it's just according to what you're doing. In our particular case, I do want to delete it and just delete everything, delete that I've done. And now I can start coming in from here. Now, one of the things you might want to be thinking about, I'll go back and edit this sketch, is that I'm going to draw a center line here. Oops. Line. And then I'm going to draw a center line here, because really what I want to be doing is most of these units are symmetrical. So in other words, I only have to build, in this particular case, a quarter of this, and then I can mirror it for that end, mirror it for that, mirror it to that over there. So I don't have to build the whole thing. So think about that. Now sometimes the front and back are different, but the left and right, so you just have to look at that. But the way this is I only really have to build like this quarter of this, and then once it's done, I can mirror it around. So another case, just as an example, if I make this, let's say, do this. Oh, and then let's do something like, let's create a box. And I'm going to turn this off for a second. I want to create on that. And let the box cut through it like so. And then maybe I want to come in and I want to round this. maybe I want to do a similar fillet here around this a little bit. And maybe that's what I'm wanting to do. And then I can come up here and I can do a mirror. So it's going to say faces or bodies. I want a body, so I'm going to mirror this body. And then it wants the mirror plane. So I come over here and select this. And I can say join it together. And then that's going to be one piece. And then I can do the same again. I can do another mirror where I'm going to mirror this. And my plane is this. And there we go. Not sure what I did that got that. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm not sure why I got that. I'll have to go back and see. I'm going to change this to perspective right now. So you can see that you could build a quarter and then you can, build the other pieces instead of having to build, the whole thing. You build in quarters. Okay, so hopefully it helped you. Oh, another thing I wanted to go over, two other things. Under document settings right here, this is where you change your units. So if I want to go here, this defaults to millimeters. I could change this to inches. And so then when I'm measuring things, it would be in inches. And this named view is another thing, because sometimes what I want is to make a camera. Like this is the view I want to come back to periodically. So what I can do is right here where this says named view, just right click on this and create a new view. And I'm just going to call this my main view. And that's basically a camera is what that is. So at any given time when I'm messing with this, it's, it's like if I'm coming in saying, okay, I want to create a cylinder here. And I want to fillet this. Okay, fine. And then what I can do is if I click this, it'll go back to that view. Okay. So you can make camera views. And this is really helpful also when you're doing your rendering to be able to set up a specific camera. Okay, so hopefully that helped you. I'll put a link in here for PureRef. We're going to be using PureRef once we on some other projects. I'm going to have you grab the reference and stuff in here. So I'm right clicking to move it around, scrolling the button. Center click moves the little section. Okay, these are like grouped together, the way you can think of it. Double clicking on something brings it up. Double click goes back down. And it's a really good utility. It's called PureRef, and I'll put a link to that for you to download. You're going to need it, so you need to go ahead and download it. Because as we go through with other projects, I'm going to be requiring you to use it, because when you're going to be gathering some reference for some of the other stuff, you're going to make me a PureRef file. Okay, so hopefully that helps you how to get started on your project. Keep things organized. A lot of students have really, matter of fact, I would say traditionally students are really bad at organization. They don't name their stuff. It's called body 1, body 2, body 3, body 4. No, this is the case. We'll call this the top. Maybe this is the case top. Things should be named. Okay, this is the sketch for main case. Everything should be named. So when I come in here and you share your file, we're building as teams. In our case, you and I are collaborating on what we're doing in here. And then that's going to help us being able to keep control over what's going on. Okay, so hopefully that helps you. Thank you very much.